All right, today we're going to dive into the mind of Albert Camus. He was a thinker who was never afraid to tackle one of the heaviest, most fundamental questions you can possibly ask.
For Camus, this wasn't just some dramatic thought experiment. No, he believed this was the only real starting point for any serious thinking. Everything else, well, it all comes after this.
Think about that. In his view, before you can even begin to ask about things like justice or truth or beauty, you first have to decide whether life itself is worth the trouble. It's a stark and really powerful place to begin.
So, who was the man behind this ultimate question? Let's take a look at the life that forged such an unflinching worldview.
You know, to really get a handle on Camus' ideas, you can't just read the books. You have to understand the world he came from, a world that was filled with poverty, illness, and war.
Okay, so let's dive into some of the key moments of his life, because they directly feed into his vision of a universe that's harsh and beautiful, but in the end, completely indifferent to us.
Just look at this timeline. It shows a life just defined by collision. He's born into a poor, working-class family in Algeria, loses his dad in World War I, then at just 17, a tuberculosis diagnosis completely shatters his dreams of becoming a professional athlete, but somehow, despite all that, he publishes his absolute masterpieces in 42, wins the Nobel Prize at the incredibly young age of 44, and then he's gone, killed in a tragic car accident just 3 years later. Hardship for him was a constant companion in a short but absolutely brilliant life.
And it's from this life that Camus developed his central concept. It's a term you've probably heard before, but he defined it in a really specific way: the absurd.
Now, this is really important. For Camus, the absurd isn't just that the world is meaningless. No, it's way more specific. The absurd is the divorce, the confrontation between two things: us, with our desperate, passionate need for meaning, and a universe that just gives us silence.
And this breaks it down perfectly. On one side, you've got us, right? We're searching, even screaming, for a reason, for some kind of clarity, a purpose. And on the other side, well, you've got the universe, in all its cold, irrational, silent reality. That huge gap, that tension between what we want and what the world gives us, that is the absurd.
Okay, so once he identifies this problem, this deep feeling of the absurd, Camus then asks the big question: what do we do about it? How are we supposed to live in the face of this silent universe?
He lays out 3 possible paths. First, there's physical suicide. He rejects this flat out, because it's just an escape. It doesn't actually confront the problem. Second is what he calls a leap of faith. This is turning to religion or some big ideology for prepackaged answers. He had a pretty harsh name for this: philosophical suicide. It's just another way of running away. So that leaves the third, and for Camus, the only honest option: acceptance and revolt.
Now, this is so crucial. Revolt, for Camus, isn't about picking up a weapon. It's a state of mind. It's the act of living with full, conscious awareness of our absurd situation and in choosing to live passionately anyway. It's about embracing our freedom in a world that has no built-in rulebook.
And this brings us to his most powerful metaphor, the myth of Sisyphus. You know the story. The guy condemned forever to push a boulder up a hill, only to watch it roll right back down. Camus says that in that moment when Sisyphus watches the rock fall, he is totally conscious of his fate. And in his decision to turn around and push it again, that's where he finds his freedom. That's where he finds his joy. We have to imagine Sisyphus happy, because the struggle itself has become his meaning.
So, why do these ideas, forged in a tough life over half a century ago, still hit so hard today?
46. That's how old Albert Camus was when he died, just 46 years old.
And yet in that short life, look at what he did. He was a novelist, a playwright, a journalist, a philosopher, a moralist, and a Nobel Prize winner. The sheer range of his work is just astounding.
You know, his real importance, I think, lies in his honesty. He spoke directly to a generation that was just grappling with the chaos and the feeling of meaninglessness left after 2 world wars. He didn't offer them false hope. Instead, he offered them a way to live with their eyes wide open.
So, what are the big takeaways here? First, the absurd isn't the world's fault. It's this fundamental conflict between us and the universe. Second, the only honest way to live is to reject the easy escapes and instead choose to revolt. You have to create your own meaning through a conscious life filled with passion and freedom. Because in a world without some grand purpose handed to us, the meaning we forge for ourselves, well, that's everything.
And that leaves us with Camus' challenge turned right back at us. In this life, with all of its struggles and its lack of easy answers, what does it mean for you to live in revolt? What's your boulder going to be, and how will you find your happiness in pushing it?